Shreveport. City Councilman Oliver Jenkins. Hey, Colonel, how are you this morning?
I am great. How are you guys doing this morning?
An interesting evening last evening. You eventually a no vote, a somewhat unanimous 6-0. Mr. Bowman kind of skirted out. What was, as you were kind of going back and forth, at least I think you were, tell us what the deciding factor in your final no vote was.
Well, I think anything of this magnitude, if it's to be successful, it needs a significant amount of public support, ultimately. And unfortunately, this group, this, let's call it project, whatever, didn't really have a constituency specifically behind it. And doesn't have public support, it's going to be difficult, to move forward with anything of this financial magnitude.
One of the criticisms, if you want to use that word, that's come up repeatedly this morning is that the mayor and her administration did not do a good enough job informing people on the council, people that they wanted to help them sell this, that guys like you didn't have the information that you needed to go out and be, and I don't mean this in a negative way, a cheerleader for this proposition.
Well, I never really felt that I didn't have enough information. I think the way that something like this gets, if you want to say, sold, is to have people in the private sector that are actually advocating for it. And unfortunately, we're in a time of largely distrust in government, which I think is unfair, but there is a certain amount of, constant scrutiny of government, and so you need people in the private domain to be out there advocating for things like this. And sadly, there just wasn't a strong enough advocacy, in my opinion. I thought it was a great opportunity.
Corporate realty opportunity of $139 million. Do you see that as dead this morning?
I hope not. I think it is too good of an opportunity to pass up. But we do need more public input and, just how we could possibly move forward and what groups would like to see in a project like this.
Do you see the Pelicans as a dead issue this morning?
I don't see them as a dead issue either. From what I understand, they're waiting on Pensacola, which has a November, I believe, GOP vote. So I don't know how they could necessarily move forward with another city or Pensacola before now.
Do you think the city made a mistake, specifically the Tyler administration made an error in telling the Pelicans or selling the Pelicans on the idea that you can't come to Shreveport unless we get a new arena?
So you're asking me, really, do you think the Pelicans made a mistake by telling the city of Shreveport that, is what you're saying?
Or did the city of Shreveport make a mistake in telling the Pelicans that we don't have a place that's good enough for you to play? We've got to hang our hats, and you've got to hang your hat with us on this new building. And if there's no new building, there's no point in you coming here because we don't have a nice place.
To be honest, I wasn't involved in those negotiations or discussions. I was kind of led to believe that we did not have a facility currently in our town that supported, what the Pelicans were looking for.
And yet in other markets, the NBA teams, in this case it would have been the Pelicans, have put some money up to upgrade existing facilities. And yet that never seemed to be on the table, right?
Well, let me say this. I think upgrading a, existing facility like Hirsch, not that there's anything wrong with Hirsch, but clearly the corporate realty / real estate development around something at Hirsch was not possible. So I'm not exactly sure what that current facility would have been. Could there have been a partnership with Centenary? Now that did seem viable to me, but I wasn't involved in those discussions. And I do think that there were some, maybe some opportunities downtown, though I recognize we had concerns about ceiling height on various existing city facilities. So, I was always led to believe that we didn't have what they needed at the moment.
Oliver Jenkins, Shreveport City Council member. Let me put a new title in front of your name. Mayor Jenkins. How would he have handled this?
Well, I tell you what, I think it's always easier to criticize, with hindsight. So I want to make that very clear that this is not a criticism, without, as we were going, I didn't offer any good ideas to her on how to necessarily get a better result in the end. So let me make that clear. But I think clearly you need, as I mentioned, some kind of advocacy constituency that moves a project forward, that's out there, marketing this as a great idea and what it brings to the city. I was always surprised that there wasn't a strong enough, the business community didn't really lead on this project from my perspective. And I think that's a little something that, certainly those groups, could have really helped. I also think DDA, unfortunately, was not very involved in the project. And, if I'm looking at a project that's going to move our center of gravity back to downtown, I certainly want the DDA as one of the biggest cheerleaders or advocacies for it. So those are areas that I probably think in hindsight could have been managed a little better.
Do you think one of the reasons that local business people, that local money wasn't more involved, was because the Tyler administration, in putting this plan together, sort of put all their eggs in the corporate realty basket and sort of cut a lot of local people out of those negotiations and planning and selling? I
don't believe so. And I don't believe that there was somebody in Shreveport that had the same vision that corporate realty had. And, I mean, they are absolute experts at this type of a project. They were recommended from somebody outside the city, and somebody that had the capacity and experience to do a project. So in terms of the vision and the scope of the project, I don't believe there was somebody in town that was either interested or experienced in doing that with some type of an anchor tenant like this.